Hello, everybody. Welcome to Alternative Sunday School, as I guess I'll be calling it. I hope everyone's safe. I know the storm is pretty bad. I hope everyone's safe and no one's electric is cut out. And if it is, God, hopefully not. They've got a generator or a kerosene heater or something, a way to stay warm. Anyways, if you're new, this is not your typical Sunday lesson. This is not your typical Bible lesson. I am basically going through the Bible from front to back. At least I'm going to do my best to, and read it through the lens I have now versus the lens I had when I first read all this scripture back in the day when I was indoctrinated. So this is just me going through the Bible with a brand new perspective. And this is probably one of the most important parts yet that I have to do. So, because it is getting increasingly harder for people to explain these things away now. Let's just get right back into it. So where we left off, Aaron is gone. Aaron died. Whether it's clear he didn't die of natural causes. It's clear that Yahweh and or Moses had something to do with it. They were there, witnessed it. They knew it was going to happen. They made this big show of taking off his priest garments and giving them to his son Eleazar. And yeah, they came down and then they mourned Aaron. Everyone mourned Aaron on Mount Hor, Hor. That's where Aaron passed. It always seems to be on a mountain where these leaders pass, but anywho. So, if you have your Bible or if you wanted to go along, we are in Numbers 21. And basically, hold up, sorry. I'm on the wrong page. Okay, here we go. Now, while they're still on their journey, this is still during, the 40 years. I'm not sure if this was before they knew they had to be there for 40 years. I don't think so. I think this is after, and they're just kind of wandering. They're staying on the move. And as they're wandering along this road, a Canaanite king by the name of Arad, I don't think he's the king of all the Canaanites, just a specific tribe of Canaanites. They had many tribes. Once he heard that they were coming, him and his men kidnapped some of them, took them captive, and this angered the Israelites quite a bit. They asked Yahweh. They said that if Yahweh helped them to deliver these people into their hands, whatever that means, that they in turn would kill them all and destroy them all. So it was some kind of trade. Obviously, it kind of insinuates or leads us to believe that Yahweh has perhaps brought up this notion more than once of him wanting them to destroy these people, because this is a strange barter. It's in exchange for you letting us kick their asses, we'll just kill them all for you. That's so it seems like this is very much something Yahweh wanted to happen. He wanted these people to be destroyed and killed. So I have trouble believing that they were evil at all. Coming from the guy who obviously wants them all dead, of course, he's going to make them sound evil. So, anyways, they continue their journey. And then, I think, we already talked about the snakes. Yahweh likes to do this. He likes to, send stuff to give them problems, like venomous snakes biting at their ankles on the journey. He just loves to make, every step of the way as miserable as possible. So then they started screaming out because the snakes were biting them. And, Moses is constantly trying to defend them, constantly keeping Yahweh's temper cool, constantly trying to be, peacemaker. So Yahweh is all right, fine. You talk me down. Here's this bronze snake. And every time they look at it, they're still going to keep getting bit. But they got to look at this staff in order to keep from dying from the venom. Right, does that make any sense? That makes a whole lot of sense. You know what I mean? That makes perfect sense. Why wouldn't you do that? Makes perfect sense. So they're on their journey and they come to another place. I don't like to get in too much to the geography, but they come to another place. So they need to pass through the land of the Amorites, okay? So they decide to send messengers to the king of the Amorites, who was King Sihon. They sent some messengers to him to request that they be able to pass through his land on their way to Moab. Well, Sihon says no, and instead musters like an army to go out and fight the Israelites, just for even suggesting that they cross through the land. It's a bit excessive and a bit aggressive, but who knows? There might be something more to this that I'm not seeing. It was a bit aggressive. So in response, the Israelites, they essentially wiped him out, defeated the army, and took over his land, essentially. And then if you're wondering about Og, same thing pretty much happens. They come out with their army. Yahweh tells Moses, don't worry, I got your back. Kick their ass. So then he goes and, kills them, and he leaves no survivors and takes his land, essentially. Yeah. They basically just crush everyone around them. I'm not sure why if they were this powerful and could crush them down, why couldn't they just simply cross through the land? I don't know. Yahweh clearly didn't want that, though. Yahweh clearly wanted them to kill them all. And not just that, destroy their architecture, their altars, wipe them out. It's a very similar pattern that keeps happening. It keeps coming up. Anytime you look through history, it comes up over and over. There are these sudden radical groups that pop up and decide to rewrite history and destroy the previous history, wipe out entire cultures so no one remembers them. It's very sad, and I think it's very evil. I don't think that this is the work of an all-loving God. But anyways, let's keep going. Now we get to the infamous story of Balaam and his donkey. This isn't a very interesting story. I've always been kind of curious. It always was one of those stories that kind of makes you hesitate. Like, what? That doesn't sound quite right. But okay, they teach it in Sunday school quite a bit. So let's talk about it. So the Moabites and the Midianites, hear all this, that they took over all these lands and they were on their way to Moab, and they get a little freaked out. You know what I mean? They don't really want to have the same fate as the Amorites and, King Sihon and all them. They didn't want that to happen to them. So they decide, Balak, who is, I believe, the leader of Moab or Midian, I believe he's the leader of Moab. Balak summons Balaam. Try not to get them too confused. I know their names sound similar. Balak is the king. Balaam is the prophet. And they want Balaam, the prophet, to go and curse the Israelites. That's what his instructions were to be. And Balaam warns them. He's like, well, I can only do what God lets me do, but okay. So Balak takes Balaam to where the Israelites are. Oh, wait, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting too far ahead of myself. First, the messengers go to Balaam, and they say what they need him to do and whatnot. And he tells these messengers to spend the night, and he would let them know what he was going to do in the morning. And so Yahweh tells him, I'm assuming it's Yahweh. Maybe it's a different one of the Elohims. Maybe it's Marduk or Ninorta. I don't know. But basically tells Balaam to not go with them, and that these people are blessed, and that he is not to put a curse on them. So he gives them the bad news the next morning. And, so they go back and give this devastating news to Balak, who then decides, well, we just need to send more well-esteemed and regarded people to ask Balaam to do this for us. So they send more messengers a second time, to which Balaam tells them to spend the night, and he would consult, what's his name, again. And Yahweh is not exactly, I'm assuming this has to be Yahweh, seeing how impatient he is. He's not, I guess he's not exactly known for his patience. So he's like, okay, well, go with them. Since they came and you summoned me a second time, go with them. But he's kind of pissed. You know what I mean? He's kind of pissed. So as Balaam gets on his donkey and goes, oh, wait, but first he goes, he's like, but go, but do only what I tell you to do. Balaam agrees, naturally. So he gets on his donkey and goes. But Yahweh is still pissed. So he basically sends an invisible angel in the middle of the road to just mess with Balaam. And like the donkey is the only one who can see it. And he keeps like stopping. And Balaam's like trying to beat his donkey to get him to go. And the donkey won't go. And then Yahweh makes the angel visible. And it's like, aha, gotcha. You can still go. But just remember, do what I tell you to do only. It's almost like he did that whole little ruse and prank just to tell him again to do only what he tells him. I just found that interesting. It's very, it just stinks of ego. That's all I really wanted to say about that. So Balaam goes, and basically he's, I'm not sure exactly what vantage point he's at, what mountain he's at. Wherever he's at, he has a view of the Israelite camp. And instead of cursing them like Balak wanted him to do, he gives them a blessing. And then Balak, why would you do that? And this is what confuses me. Because Balak thinks that if he just takes Balaam to a different location, a different spot, a different view, that for some reason this would change Balaam and Yahweh's mind and curse them instead. I'm not really sure the logic behind this. I feel like there's missing context. I could be wrong. But basically this happens like 3 times. And he just keeps blessing them. In fact, he blesses them 3 times. So, I think Balak basically just gives up. And him and Balaam go their separate ways, basically. But what's interesting, though, is some of these messages that Balaam says that's technically from Yahweh, from their God. And you know what I mean? If you look at Numbers 23, verse 24, this is what the Balaam's second message. The people, meaning Israel, rise like a lioness. They rouse themselves like a lion that does not rest till it devours its prey and drinks the blood of its victims. So that was in reference to Israel. Whether it's meant literally or symbolically, it's still very disturbing either way. In fact, I'm not really sure if one's more disturbing than the other. Either scenario is very disturbing. Like, what do you mean, drink the blood of its victims? That's and I looked at all the different English translations. It says that literally over and over about drinking the blood of their victims. So I don't know if that's literal or it's supposed to be symbolic, but like I said, either way, it's equally disturbing. And that's not the only one of Balaam's message that gets kind of dark. In his third message, Numbers 24, verses 8 to 9. God brought them out of Egypt. They have the strength of a wild ox. They devour hostile nations and break their bones in pieces. With their arrows, they pierce them. Like a lion, they crouch and lie down. Like a lioness, who dares to rouse them? So basically, now we're in Numbers 25. Basically, while the Israelites are in Shittim, which is in Moab, they start to do as the Moabites do. You know what I mean? They start to follow their customs, worship their gods, and they even have interrelations with the women there. And this really pisses Yahweh off. It's like they're not allowed to make their own choices and follow the gods they want to follow. They're not allowed to turn their backs on Yahweh, basically. Like, he's not giving them free will. And it's like the biggest lie they tell us is that, God gives us free will. And he does. The real God does. But this God, quote God, definitely was not giving them free will. And had a large ego and apparently was not above jealousy. And he's supposed to be above all that. But he's not, clearly. He couldn't handle it. So his anger burns against them. In other words, he gives them plague and disease. And he tells Moses that he's supposed to take all these leaders and in broad daylight, in front of everybody and in front of Yahweh, that he's supposed to kill them. So that way his anger turns against Israel. And Moses, tells the different judges of Israel that each of them must put to death all the people who have turned against Yahweh and started worshiping Baal of Peor. And during all this commotion and all this hubbub, all of a sudden out of nowhere, an Israelite came into the camp in front of everybody, as clear as day, a Midianite woman. Now, they don't really give a lot of context. They do give the name of this woman and the Israelite in a moment. But what happens is the Israelite, walks in with this woman in tow. Phinehas, who is Aaron's grandson, basically, the son of Eleazar, sees this, grabs his spear, follows them into the tent, and basically impales them both in one go in front of everybody. Then all of a sudden, all the plagues and the diseases that they were all suffering from goes away. Magically just goes away. Now, what's interesting, yes, they do give us the names of the Israelite and the Midianite woman. The name of the man was Zimri, who was of the Simeonite lineage. The woman, who was a Midianite woman, her name was Cosby, daughter of Zor, a tribal chief of a Midianite family. And I don't know why, but that part really struck me. It really, struck me. She wasn't just like a random Midianite. She was the daughter of a chief. I don't know why that struck me as important, but it does. It does, slightly. I don't know. Because, Yahweh is clearly all about getting rid of these certain lineages. At least he's trying to. That seems to be the goal behind what he's telling them. I'm not sure if they even know that's what they're doing. They probably just think they're taking the land that was promised to them and whatnot. But I don't think they understand the larger goal. Maybe Moses figures that out eventually. Maybe Aaron already did. I don't know, but it is just convenient that, it doesn't seem like neither Aaron nor Moses, as we will see later, dies a natural death. It's like a designated death. It's very strange. But anywho, so yeah, they kill the woman. The plague stopped. Soon as the plague stopped, Yahweh tells Moses to take a census. Take a census of all the fighting age men. And who are, I guess, healthy enough to fight with Israel. And this whole next chapter is basically a whole list of that census. It is a lot. And I'm definitely not going to read all these names. I don't think they're important. But if you want to, go ahead. If you have a Bible, you can download a free Bible app on, it's Numbers 26, the second census. So I'm not going to read all that. We're going to skip right over that. Because the point of this isn't really about the bloodlines. It really isn't. I'm really more interested in the theology and the philosophy behind it all. That's what I'm interested in. In chapter 27, it does briefly talk about Zelophehad's daughters, who, I guess since their father only had girls, asked about their property, and the property is promised to them. That doesn't sound important now, but it does become important later, because you will see Yahweh somewhat renege on that promise. But at this point, it's important to know that he does promise these daughters that in the event something happens to their father, that his land will belong to them. Just remember that for later. Okay, so then they get into Moses Yahweh explains to Moses, I'm going to have to kill you, Moses. You and your brother Aaron both disobeyed me and rebelled, and you embarrassed me in front of all of the Israelites. So you're just going to have to die because of it. You're just going to have to die. And then Moses was like, well, can we at least appoint another leader over them? Can we at least do that? So they're, being looked after. And then it's kind of strange. Verses 18 to 20. it's like this whole like little ritual thing that they do where Moses basically puts his hands on Joshua, and part of his power or part of his spirit will go into Joshua. It's this whole thing that it's a little confusing. It is a little confusing, but anywho, so that's what they did, and he anoints like Joshua, the his successor, and who's going to take on his role after he's gone. And then of course they once again, because it's all about repetition with mind control, they repeat the laws about the offerings, the Sabbath offerings, the monthly offerings, the Passover, the Festival of the Weeks, the Festival of the Tabernacles, all of that. They got to go over it all again, even though they've been over it at least 2 or 3 times thus far. And they will go over it again, I'm sure, no doubt. The Festival of the Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, Festival of Tabernacles, all this stuff that I'm not going to get into because, like I said, they've gone over these rules over and over and over again. Not going to do it. So let's skip over all that and go on to Numbers 31. Probably one of the most important chapters in this whole book. Because this really is a true test to how this mind control is working, if it is working at all, is if you can read through Numbers 31 and ever look at the Bible the same way again, ever look at Yahweh the same way again, ever look at Moses and Joshua the same way again. Because this is just pure evil. And remember, keeping in mind, Moses also had family. He, at once upon a time, did have Midianite family and children. What became of them, I'm not really sure. Hopefully they weren't in this group. So basically, Yahweh is angry with Midian. He's angry with Midian. And he wants revenge. And Yahweh even tells Moses that this will basically be like the last thing you do. And then I'm going to kill you. First, you're going to get revenge on Midian for me. That's what you're going to do first. And Balaam was among them. Balaam, yes, he got killed too. So even though he did everything like the Lord said, they killed him. And you see, I think this is where the missing context comes in. Because they also killed a bunch of women who followed Balaam's advice. And you see, that's a little strange to me. It's like, what do you mean followed Balaam's advice? I thought Balaam blessed them. What advice are they speaking of? But apparently it is suggested that Balaam was one of the ones who coerced, or maybe not coerced, but convinced a lot of the Israelites to follow their ways and customs. You know, when Yahweh, was giving them all diseases for doing that. Apparently Balaam was one of the ones telling them to disobey. Very interesting, I thought. But basically this whole thing that's about to happen, this genocide that they're about to commit against the Midianites, it basically all comes down to that. Was apparently at some point in this story, Yahweh's ego got hurt or bruised, and he didn't like it, and he wanted all the Midianites to die, including Balaam. And so they go and pretty much wipe them all out. But here's the thing. They come back to Moses, and Moses is angry that there were some women left alive. Women who clearly looked like that they were old enough to have been married and have children. No. They all die. In fact, every single Midianite man, woman, and child dies, all except for the little girls. They're the only ones they were allowed to let live. Specifically, girls who had never yet slept with a man. And anybody who knows anything about history knows that at this point in time in history, that was an extremely young girl. In fact, as soon as girls got their periods back then, they were married off. So these girls were children, clearly. Like prepubescent children. Guess what Moses says? He says to let them live and keep them for yourselves. Here we go. Moses, encouraging pedophilia. Yes, it's ancient times, but it's still pedophilia. It is something that is just, like I say, I feel was pushed on people. I'm not trying to absolve anybody of guilt. I swear to God I'm not, because reading this stuff makes me so angry. I'm just saying that this is clearly like something that is not... You know, birds, baby birds, that most baby birds have a completely different color, like, feather than the adult birds. Anybody ever wonder why? It's so that the birds, the adult birds and like the male birds, didn't mistake baby birds for grown-ups and didn't harm them, fight with them, try to breed with them. It was just, you know, it's just because it's not natural to do that. It's not natural to do that. But here we have it in the Bible, Moses encouraging it. Here these little girls were all traumatized enough. They were traumatized enough. Their whole family gets slaughtered. Their whole lives destroyed. Then they get taken to these creepy older men. It's just so foul and disgusting. And I do believe we can trace a lot of the roots to the evil that's going on today back to these events that took place. I really do believe that. Now, and this is how I know Yahweh was involved, and this wasn't just Moses. Because they, like I said, they left the little girls alive. Only the little girls who had never been with a man yet, the little virgin girls, they were allowed to kept alive. And there were 16,000 of them. And since Yahweh's tribute was 1 out of every 500 of all the sheep, cattle, and stuff, including people, it says specifically, Numbers 31:40, 16,000 of the little girls that they left alive, 32 were given to Yahweh. So Yahweh got to have 32 little virgin girls. What did Yahweh want with 32 virgin girls? Do they mean, I think either scenario doesn't sound good. Whether or not they were used as like a sacrifice and were eaten, or if they were sex slaves for Yahweh. Think about how dark this is. What else do you think happened to them? I'm curious. I would like to know. The Bible scholars out there, the pastors, the priests, the fathers, the popes. Numbers 31:40. What do they think happened to those 32 children? What happened to them? What happened to them? What do you think happened to them? What do they think happened to them? I honestly want to know. And how are we going to find a way to excuse this? Are we going to still sit here and say with a straight face that this is a real God? The real God? You know, the real God who's like literally lied to them about every single thing up until now, about the promised land, about what it would take to acquire the promised land, about who would actually get to see the promised land, if they would ever get to see the promised land. And the answer to that was no. No, their children got to see it after their children grew up and was raised in a harsh climate desert where they were afraid to even like breathe wrong. If they even stepped outside their tent and moved a piece of hair on the Sabbath day, that they would be stoned to death. What the heck are we talking about anymore? Are we really still believing that any of this is like for real? Anyways, the last part of Numbers that I would like to talk about. Let's go back to Zelophehad's daughters. Now, like I said, Yahweh and Moses both promised them that they would inherit their father's land, even though they didn't have brothers, they would inherit it. Well, some of the members and they were descendants of the tribe of Joseph, Manasseh. Well, some of the members of this particular tribe was upset because they thought, well, what if they marry someone from another tribe in Israel? Then part of that land will go to them. And then Yahweh and Moses was like, I see. We see. Fair enough. Okay. Well, they will only inherit it if they marry someone within their father's tribe. Maybe it's a minor little compromise that they would have to make. Maybe. I don't know. Arranged marriages were certainly happening all the time. I would think. I don't know. But I don't know. It's just like one of those other promises where they don't get the full picture until the time comes for it to action to be taken, for Yahweh to actually fulfill his promise. There's all these other little things that no one knew that, or you know, it's just a pattern. It's a huge pattern, and it will keep happening, as you will see, as we continue into Deuteronomy, which I will pick that up on Wednesday. Thank you for listening. Did you enjoy the Sunday service, this alternative Sunday service? If you have any criticisms or critiques to make it easier to listen to or easier to hear, please let me know, because yeah, these videos are super important to me. I think they're really important with everything going on now, because it's like a lot of people are waking up, and unfortunately a lot of those people are just still reverting back to their religion to answer some of these questions, and which I'm not saying religion can't. I'm just saying that, like, it feels like almost as if this was the purpose. It's like if we start to realize we're on the wrong path, and we start to see, you know, wake up to the truth around us, it's almost like that this is used as the distraction to bring us back to the wrong path. You know what I mean? I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. But yeah, let me know. Give me some critiques. I love criticism. Please. And also, please like and subscribe. Have a good day.